Yo, is the mic on, Mike? Into that mic on, Mike, and pour us another one. Let's do it right though, Mike. We feeling nice though, Mike. Gather round, gather round. Into that mic on, Mike. Into that mic on, Mike. Yeah, Garage Drinks with Mike. Woo!
And so no, the camera, just us, just talking. Eh?
That's it.
And I didn't even ask you what you wanted to talk about. I just went yes, because I just think whatever the message is that you're after, you just guide it, and we'll just chat.
Sure. Sweet as. Rob Mokaraka, welcome to my garage.
Kia ora.
Thank you for coming, brother.
Thank you, brother Michael. Thanks, my bro.
No worries, bro.
What's this?
That is the beautiful Heineken 0.0.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Have you ever tried it before?
No.
First time?
First time.
What does it taste like?
It tastes pretty good for a non-alcoholic beer.
I think it's the best non-alcoholic beer out there.
Oh my goodness.
It tastes like the real thing, right?
It tastes like the real deal.
Yeah.
0.0, making you look like a hero.
Yeah. And also, it's I think it's like 69 or something calories. It's pretty low in calories as well.
Very good.
So out of all the non-alcoholic beers, I think that's probably the best choice.
Well, thanks. Now I know.
Yeah,
Thank
bro.
you.
Yeah, really good summer beer. Good for barbecues if you're driving.
Yeah.
But I got a few of those lined up, bro. So don't you worry.
Thank you, my brother.
How's things, bro?
Things are pretty good, eh? Pretty good. I just remember to be grateful to be alive and grateful for my two daughters and to be breathing. So, yeah.
Awesome, bro. I'm really glad that you could make it. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Oh, bro, I've been watching a couple of your podcasts, and because I've started my own, I'm actually trying to get some tips from watching you. And so, bro, and also, just because we've got a long history and we haven't seen each other for a long time, it's just a pleasure to meet another man, another brother on a journey to help others.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm still an amateur at this, man. I'm just...
We all are.
Figuring it out as I go along. But we go way back. You, of course, are an actor, and that's your primary background, is that right?
I was, and now I'm suicide prevention and mental health around Australasia. But yes, that was my primary background.
And you went to Toi Whakaari many moons ago, is that right?
No. Oh, no, I went to the country cousin version, which was at Northland Polytechnic in Whangarei at drama. But I moved to Wellington, which I thought was Hollywood, coming from Whangarei, and that's where I met all these Toi Whakaari, Maori and Polynesian brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Northland Polytech, yeah. That still runs, eh?
Apparently it's still alive.
Yeah. No, I worked with... Brian Divers from Northland Polytech. We did a show about methamphetamine. Yeah. When I just came out of drama school, and we toured Northland and we toured Wairarapa as well through the high schools.
Beautiful.
And that was a long time ago, but that drug is still so prevalent today.
Yeah, and just the fact that there was awareness to do it way back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, we need more of that.
Yeah. I invited you here because I love your story, and I think it might be easiest if you start us off with how you came onto this journey, because I know what you do now sort of day to day, and you talk about this a lot. But just for our listeners who aren't aware of your journey and what it is that you do now, do you want to take us back to how this all began?
Oh, absolutely, brother. So, yes, I have come from an acting and writing background. And in 2009, I had a massive mental and spiritual breakdown. And I was in the storm of suicidal ideation. And in Point Chevalier, Auckland, I provoked the police to shoot me dead. I know this sounds full on to all the listeners out there. It was full on, and it is full on. And so on that day, I scared the police so much. I was acting erratic. I was dressed in a military uniform. I called them upon myself, by the way.
You called the cops?
I called them on myself. And this is all documented in my documentary, which is online on YouTube, and I say it in my theatre shows / seminars around Australasia. So I was in the storm of suicidal ideation. I was triggered from an emotional breakup. One of many. I didn't realise there was a long history of me doing this. And on this particular day, July 27th, 2009, I thought, that's it. I'm the biggest pile of crap that ever did live. This is terrible. I need to get off this planet. And the way I broke up with the female that I was going out with is that I went and slept with another woman. just to really make sure that I was going to really crush this relationship.
Right.
It was really dangerous mentally, because both of us were unwell, so to speak. No one was a bad person. Both of us just didn't have the tools. Just making that very clear. There's no good guy, bad guy here. It's just a set of circumstances. And so, yeah, I scared the police, called them upon myself. I went out to the middle of the street and they said, what's in the tea towel? I had a soup ladle dressed up in a tea towel. And they said, don't take another step. I'm also holding a meat cleaver, looking very crazy and irate. And they said, don't take the step. I took a step and bang, I was shot in the chest around about here at close range. I'm supposed to be dead 11 years ago from the doctor's reports, and I've had multiple surgeries since then. I've had multiple court cases and multiple therapies.
Right.
So from that intense trauma of suicidal ideation, from wanting to be dead, and over 7 years with a lot of help from our friends in the arts and entertainment, I slowly did sporadic bursts of trying to stand up little pieces of writings to make sense of this trauma that I'd gone through. And 7 years later, I launched it in 2016 with the help of a lot of people to be in front of you right now. So, yeah.
And you take this, and it's a one-man show.
Yeah, it's a one-man show. There's two of us who travel.
Right.
So there's myself and a sound technician. The sound technician is always someone close to me who's open to talking about mental health and well-being. I've got 3 friends I call upon, but even more. So they're my kaitiaki, also meaning they're also my guardian to check in on my mental health along the journey.
Right.
So, you know, we've got to walk it and talk it, not just go, hey man, I'm mental health and I'm cured. It's like, that's not my case.
Yeah.
My case is I'm still learning tools and sharing tools and upgrading, and it's great to share a conversation like we're having right now with a brother in a safe space. So
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I remember the day this happened. It's etched in my mind. I was sitting in another garage in Sandringham working on a TV production, Pacific Beach Street. And we were sitting, and we'd normally work in a garage on like a hot day. Actually, it wasn't too hot, but it's July. But we were in the garage that day brainstorming stuff. And I remember it popping up, the news thing, and I was like, what? What the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the arts community were pretty shocked by it. Leading up to it, can you try to explain to me like what it was like being in the dark place that you were at?
That's interesting because 1 month earlier, before the shooting, I was in London with my own theatre show, which I was the co-writer and co-actor of. And on the outside, it looked like Rob was living the dream. Rob had cracked it. He's in London at the Soho Theatre with his mate Paolo Rotondo and Marco Pohatsu, the Soul Brothers. And I was actually swirling in that storm back then, at the height, apparently, of what my career looked like from the outside. And I didn't have the words to articulate myself as I do now.
Right.
And I could be sitting across the table with my good friend Paolo, just as we're sitting here now, and I didn't know how to tell my best friend something's not right inside of me, and I don't know what to say. I just kept smiling, and we talked about everything else, or we argued about everything else as mates. And so, once again, it was looking great. We're exactly where we wanted to be at our career in London, and this storm is brewing, and I don't know what's wrong with me.
And you could never talk to anyone outside about this?
I didn't have the words, brother.
Yeah.
And also, I suppose it's been ingrained in me as a male that vulnerability is weakness. And if you ever speak about your vulnerabilities, you're useless. You're not a man. And so I suppose from society and culture and family, that's kind of been ingrained.
Yeah.
And I suppose even though I'm an actor in the arts, I'm this male guy who does this theatre and sometimes some cinema stuff, it still wasn't really addressed in the arts or entertainment industry either.
Right.
So we're all doing this great, fantastical acting and being channels. That I'll call us being conduits more than actors. We're channeling energies, people's stories, our own energies, our own way to our own spirit, our own hopes, dreams, thoughts, and trauma into a character. But are we ever addressing it? I don't think so. And I know for a fact, because I was in the industry, that no one's really addressing it. And so I suppose combined with my upbringing, which had some trauma in it, which I can get to later, and the entertainment industry is like to be shiny, but don't really talk about the core of what's. Where did your amazing dramatic performance come from, Rob? I'm not sure if I want to ever tell you that, because I didn't have the words back in the day. That trauma and that dramatic acting was drawn upon my own trauma, but I was never dealing with it.
Such a crazy journey.
Yeah.
And for it to culminate like that, and you've decided to sort of end your own life in that particular fashion, because in all the ways to choose on how to end one's life, that is probably one of the most violent ways to do it. But I also think the cry for help, your cry for help, did you ever have like a cry for help beforehand?
That's a great question. I was actually spiraling before London as well. And somebody recognised that. And they asked this, because I was doing weekend tree planting, trying to really earth myself. And I was with this girlfriend I was with at the time. And some people saw that it wasn't good. So they got this Maori male, sort of a matua, an elder, to come and have chat to me. And because I was deep in denial, and it was so locked, deep within caves, within safes, vaults, I really didn't know how to articulate anything. And this matua was really generous. He said, look boy, I see something's not right, and do you want to talk about it? I said, I'm sweet as. I'm all good. That's my go-to phrase. And then he revealed some really deep stuff, some trauma that happened to him in an attempt to try and help me. But where I was at that point in time I was thinking, why are you telling me this crap for? That's not me. That never happened to me. What I didn't realise was he was trying to show vulnerability as a Maori male, as a parental figure to a young man swirling. Yeah. And I didn't know how to be open to him. And
how old are you at this time when it happened?
I was 35.
35. And at the time you had a little girl, is that right?
Yep. My daughter was about 4.
Yes.
At the time. She's 16 now.
Right.
I was just having lunch with her before I turned up.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy, bro.
And you couldn't be here.
Yeah.
Like if you got shot in the heart, you wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be having this conversation. You wouldn't be having lunch with your daughter.
That's correct, bro. And my daughter would have had 1,000 questions and 1,000 stories. Feeling emotional now about why did her dad do that? And I've got 2 daughters, 16 and 9, and I tell both girls, Dad is still going around the country in Australia to help others not be hurt like I was. So they can talk about their emotions and feelings and thoughts and angers and hurts in a safe space. And my daughters, like, they get it. They totally get it. They're just probably grateful their dad's not dead.
100%. Yeah. I've been through stuff like what you talk about. I've done some stupid shit in the past. I've felt feelings of being in darkness.
Yeah.
I've had times where I felt like I couldn't speak out, that it wasn't available, or that it was weak to speak out. I've had friends that I have lost because they couldn't speak out, and I've done stuff where they're not with us today. And so it's very important for me to have you on, because the people that listen to this and who this goes out to, and the message, the idea that 2 men can just sit in a garage, have a non-alcoholic beer and an alcoholic beer, and talk about this freely, is freeing, and it normalizes it.
Yeah.
So I understand that, like, so what you do now from it is you take the show around, around a lot of prisons, am I correct? Or is it communities?
Communities, prisons, military bases, probation centres, organisations, whoever invites me.
Yeah. And you do and I haven't seen the show, but describe to me what the show is about.
The show is about my mental and spiritual breakdown, which is funny, dark, real, and educational. It's from my lived experiences. It was from the dark to the light, to the dark to the light. And at the end of it, I just take people on an emotional journey. People are laughing, people are crying. And in the end, the greatest compliment I get from tough males is, that shit was real, bro, and I've been there.
Yeah.
And that's a massive review from really staunch, tough males.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, great, because I got the message through to bypass your security systems in your mind and just go to your heart, and all the answers are in the heart.
Do you think it's a culture here with New Zealand males, or do you think it's guys across the world? Is it just a guy culture thing? This thing about not being able to talk about or be vulnerable about how you're really feeling inside?
I suppose each country has their own way of being, but males in general, I feel,
Have a stereotype.
not just Maori, not just Polynesians, because the audiences and the communities who turn up to my presentations are such a diverse range of cultures, and they've all been through something. But there is something about this male thing, and it's not to. I've just read this article. It's like, because the Western construct is also trying to declaw males, I'll use that word. Declaw, I'll try to say feminize us to a point so we can be civil to a point to be. So I go, that's through a Western lens, right? I say embrace your culture, embrace all the beauties and the heritage, and because within our own cultures are our healing tools from our ancestors. And those have been suppressed a lot from whoever colonized us. So look into our own whakapapa, our own genealogy, and we will find the tools to our own well-being of what helped our ancestors before us. Does that make any...
Make it a bit more detailed to me, please. So what tools do you think they used to use?
So the interesting thing, so I'll just use Maori methodologies, and because I'm not just having wānanga and forums with psychiatrists and psychologists. I'm talking to Maori healers, Maori spiritual leaders. And so, for instance, to use your own reo, your own language.
Yes.
A matua from up north in Whangarei, well-known matua, he said, language wasn't just there to communicate. Our language was there to also heal us. So the vibration, so everything is vibration. If you look at Albert Einstein, it's not just this airy-fairy thought about energy, it's vibration and energy. So the power of using your own native language and the use of sound and song and music, waiata, the vibration of that, using that with karakia, with prayer and ancient forms of songs and storytelling, there's something vibrational within that connects you to a spiritual heart and to your own homeland, even if you're living on the other side of the world. And that's only one tool. And then there's other methodologies, which is using the ocean as a cleanser and using karakia. And what's your intention when you're going, say if you're going to the forest to release something, to cry, to laugh, to talk, to breathe, to sing it out into the light, using karakia, prayers, waiata, haka, whatever form of communication that our ancestors, which are inbuilt in our DNA. And to utilize that, because I think there's a mythology and a misinterpretation that, yes, our cultures were warrior races. Yes, they did these magnificent things in battles, but they were also healers. Our ancestors were also scientists. They were also, of course they were warriors. They were poets. They were loving, caring fathers. We're women. We're wahine and tamariki children. We're treated like gods because they are the nurturers of the next generation. So we start to, now I'm going to the kōrero about colonization, we start to unpack what was suppressed within us on the daily. Then you start to realize why we act, the confusion between acting as who we are culturally and the confusion of wearing the korowai or the cloak of colonization, which has told us who we are.
Right.
So someone from the external has tried to tell us from the internal exactly who we are when they didn't have the actual real proper informational understanding of any of our cultural concepts.
That whole colonization thing is pretty horrible, and what it's done to all the way till today, and still continues to happen through the systematic racism that exists in our day-to-day lives. It's pretty tough and pretty rough, and it's a mixture of ignorance, it's a mixture of arrogance sometimes as well. But everything you've spoken about is beautiful. I love your concepts of how our ancestors use those different types of things to sort of heal themselves. Yeah.
And there was a tikanga, there was a framework. So every culture has a process, and I suppose in a Western way you would call it a ceremony. And every culture will have a ceremony to dive into the sickness with you and to help try and bring you out. So there's something to be said about ceremony.
Definitely.
So it means it's honouring a space about what we're about to enter into.
Yeah. And creating spaces today as well for a lot of, especially the guys around us, is in the age of social media, like you see it advertised a lot, social media about being thankful, being grateful, mental well-being and stuff. But I'm still surprised though at sometimes the closest guys to me that still don't talk about this sort of stuff. I've had people message me about where they're at personally and stuff, and there's people that I didn't even know were going through anything, and so I'm pretty aware how prevalent it is and how it still exists in people's minds, that they have to put up that mask or that front to be the man and not talk about this sort of stuff. It's pretty, I guess it hits home. It hits quite close to home when it's a lot of your close friends and close guys that that are going through things all the time. Yeah.
And it doesn't surprise me anymore, brother.
Right.
It doesn't surprise me. Whoever I get called from, emailed from, message from, and it could be a friend of a friend, lawyers, judges, elite athletes, someone like my uncle would mow the lawns at the school. It doesn't matter what background, what culture, what spiritual belief or gender.
Yeah.
Everybody is going through something. It's just having the permission and a safe space to speak without judgment.
Yeah. The way you attempted suicide, which was quite a public way as well. I believe there were video cameras there as well.
Oh, the news were there.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were there.
Right. It was a very public way. And after it happened, like after you were in hospital, how did you feel? Like knowing that everyone was aware of what had happened, like were you feeling shame or were you feeling... explain to me like what that was like.
Good question, bro. Really good question, because... just to go from the beginning, I didn't realise there were TV cameras there. I was in the storm of suicidal ideation. So I like the sphere of storm around me, like in the circle.
Right.
Circular sphere. And I'm walking in the middle of the storm. So all I see is the police. I don't know there's TV cameras. There was TV camera eventually turned up. And I was on the news and it's all documented. And so when I was shot, all I was thinking about, oh God, I've made a terrible mistake, and now the searing internal pain in my internal organs has overrode the pain in my head. And now it's gone from the head to like, oh my God, what the hell have I done? Where am I? What have I done? I suppose that's when the bubble sort of burst. And now I'm in a stark reality which is extremely traumatic for everybody involved, not just myself. So when I did awake in the hospital with my guts cut wide open, in extreme pain, I just and I looked around the room, and the first person I thought of was my dad, and I thought, I hope my dad doesn't know. That's the first thought, bro. And so family shame, we'll get into that. Family shame, I brought shame on the family. Oh my God, what's my dad gonna say? And as a son to a tough Maori male, and he's also an ex-war veteran from Vietnam, you usually catch planes, not feelings, from that generation. And yeah, I did feel shame. I felt ashamed that I was still alive. I felt ashamed that people knew. And the flip side to that later on, that's the best thing that could happen to me, because there's no more hiding. There's no more hiding from our family either.
No.
So in families, sometimes to protect each other or maybe to hide or mask it because they don't have the tools, there was no more of that. Because this wasn't the first attempt, brother.
Okay.
I tried to take my life a few times growing up and freaked my family out. And I really feel sorry for them because they didn't have the tools back then, nor did they have the tools in 2009.
Right. So going through that sort of shame with your family, I can only imagine, because that's a whole different level of pressure. Like, I can imagine that you're in your own bubble of pressure, so to speak, when you're in the suicidal spiral, let alone the pressure of your family added onto that, because now it's been publicized, across the whole of New Zealand. Everyone knows, and it's made the 6 o'clock news. And what's the first steps in dealing with that?
Well, the first steps is don't worry about your family. Worry about why were you suicidal? the family will come around you later, because if they actually genuinely care about you and genuinely love you as they say they do, first and foremost is you're good enough, you're worthy enough. Because when you are suicidal, or you're at that point, or you've been there, you think you're doing everyone a favour. You think that if I go, man, the family and my close mates
We'll be better off.
they're going to be so relieved. Exactly. And it's quite the opposite, because that's the power of the storm of suicidal ideation. I give it a Maori phrase. Some people call it a ngarara, which is also a monster or form of or demon, or taniwha. And there are taniwha which are there to help you as guardians. And there's also taniwha that's come from a dark place, which are not there to help you. So, and this goes into that spiritual talk, using who's talking to you, your ancestors or a dark entity or a taniwha. And there's a confusion of how to filter that and learn to know where this voice is coming from, or voices. Some people hear voices, some people it's just their thoughts on repeat in a dark cycle.
Yeah, such a lot to take on.
Oh, you're doing awesome. I'm still like soaking this up too, as I'm sharing, because some of these concepts I'm sharing for the first time.
Right.
Just
right.
Like this.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm doing it in a different way, with a forum of 300 people or a forum of 20 people.
Right.
So, brother, I'm just checking myself as we're sharing at the same time.
No, it sounds great. I love there's a lot of metaphors that ring out really well. If we go back, you talked before about family trauma and stuff that had happened when you were younger. Do you feel like those things that happened when you were younger sort of set you in motion and to end up were you being suicidal?
Yeah.
And what sort of things, if you want to talk about them or not, did happen when you were younger?
Oh, happy to talk about it, brother. So, and I love my family. I'm just going to put this straight out there. I love all my family. They were acting from the knowledge that they knew and from the trauma that they had. So I'm not out to get anyone. So growing up around social gatherings, our family, there was sporadic violence, blood. Oh, oops. See, I did violence too. Let me put this back in, bro. Violence, see? See, awesome. Now this headset's going to need counselling, bro, after this.
I'm sure it's going to get it for the session.
I hope so. Sorry, headphones. And so, when you see some blood flying out of family members, when there's fights and scuffles, you start to think that's normal. And you're actually scared as a kid. Like, I remember as little cousins, my cousins were little, was just scared. We were in horror from how did it turn from this great family occasion to uncles, aunties, families beating the shit out of each other. How did it turn from that? And then all loving much later on, and we saw it, and then we're all gathering again with some more alcohol. It's like some weird forgetful cycle, or she'll be right, we got that shit out, we're good now. And I suppose because that was a learnt behaviour too. It's a learnt behaviour. Now, I'm not saying that Maori were peace-loving people all the time, but you bring alcohol into any culture, indigenous culture, and even, don't worry, the Western culture is still suffering from their own forms of it. It's that if you don't have the tools and taught an etiquette, a tikanga, a process, a ceremony of alcohol, you're just repeating what the other generations did. And so you're doing what you've been taught. And so by seeing that, I went, okay, that's affected me. So that's one section. So along my healing journey, I had to admit that I had 3 abortions growing up with 2 different wahine. So I was 15 the first time, and then I was 18 with the same wahine, and then the third time I was 25 years of age. So those are 3 babies I've lost, and I blamed myself. I was the biggest pile of crap, shit, whatever, and I was still with them for a while, but there's my own emotional maturity from my own traumas. I didn't realise. This is all in hindsight. I had no idea we were affecting that situation either. So once again, we're hiding the abortions, hiding it, the shame of the family, hid it away from my family. Right. I didn't tell them until I had my next mental breakdown, my first massive mental breakdown, when I was 21 years of age. So when I was in a psychiatric unit, king seat, I had to tell my parents this same thing I'm telling you in front of a psychiatrist. And it was hard. I cried and cried and cried. And so I've got that now. I've got 3 abortions just to accumulate from the mass trauma of all these things accumulating together. So from the violence, sporadic violence, not violence every day. I'm not saying it was every day.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it when it was. It was like, holy shit. And when you go to another person's house and you see the parents just arguing and talking it out and no one gets hit, you think, this is different. This is really different. So no one gets hit and they could argue. Wow. And it's confusing.
Yes.
I mean, refreshing, but confusing.
Yeah.
And then, so in 2016, I launched Shop Pro. And as I'm like, yeah, I'm healing, I'm doing this great thing, helping communities, another door from my past opens up.
Right.
And I go, what the hell's that door? And I'll be talking to you like this, and I would see a door open in the corner of my vision. Like, I was like, huh? The door's gone. Talking to you, door turns up in my vision, and it's gone every time I look there. Literally.
It's something you can see.
Yeah, I could see a door, and I was like, what the hell? I'm having another mental breakdown.
Right.
So I rang a couple of close friends, and I said, hey, man, this is what's happening to me, blah, blah, blah. And a friend said, do you think it's something from your past coming up again? Because you are addressing your past. Do you think it's something from your past, something else? I went, maybe I have to see a shrink. And I always thank Mike King, because he shouted me his shrink when I was touring Shop Pro around Auckland. And I just had one session at that time, one session in general. And the cool thing was, once again, we're not related as therapist to client.
Yes.
And I just went, I'm having memories of someone else being molested. So my mind was compartmentalizing things. My mind was saying I was holding on to these memories for somebody. And I was like, how am I holding on to these these emotional trauma dreams and stuff? Well, that's how my mind was compartmentalizing. Yeah. So eventually I said it loudly to the shrink. He didn't solve my problems. But the cool thing was I got it out into the ear.
Yes.
And I was still doing Shop Pro, so I'm still unpacking. And then I shared this conversation with a cousin of mine, first cousin, like a real rangatira, somebody I trust and love. And I went, I'm going to maybe mention to my cousin I'm seeing a shrink again. And I said, look, cuz, this is going on, had to see a shrink, and this is what unpacked. I remembered being molested, and he dropped his head, and he looked at me and he went, not you too. And I was like, what? Because I thought I was the only crazy person on the planet. Right. So I'm unveiling and revealing stuff within myself was hidden, because that's how trauma works.
Yes.
It's sort of just your mind can compartmentalize it to save your life at that point in time. And unfortunately, when it's not addressed, it will come and surge up through multiple different negative avenues. So when I said that to my cousin, his head dropped, and he repeated that to me. And I was like, what the hell? So all of a sudden, I'm not alone in the family. And then I start to unpack it more and more, very slowly, and I still am today. Right. But it's to make sure that no more cousins, nephews, or aunties, or uncles ever have to go through this for the next generation. So I've said this in public forums where my family have turned up. And no one said anything from the family in particular. The public has spoken, but later on, through different avenues, some cousins, male and female, with their kids go, thank you for speaking up for me. Thank you for being the voice, my cousin. And I didn't realize they too. And I said, I say this to them, and I'll say this to you as I say to everybody, regardless of culture. It's not your fault. We were kids. We were babies. And I look them in the eye, and I know it's hard to comprehend, but sometimes perhaps they've never had someone say that to them. They're an adult now. They're supposed to traditionally have their shit together by now. But if we haven't unpacked these hurts and these traumas within our own culture and families, it's a difficult thing to address.
There are many people walking around today that have been through a lot of trauma that's happened to them when they were children, and they're either unaware of it, or they've compartmentalized it and kept it hidden somewhere, or they simply directly refuse to address it, and so they carry it with them. And it must be tough, because it's a burden that's consistently on your back, but the way that burden affects you in your day-to-day life comes through in different forms, I guess, and puts pressure on either their relationships or them as a parent, how they parent their children, shows up in such different ways. So where you're at now, right, and looking back at everything that you've gone through, do you feel a sense of peace?
Sometimes.
Yeah. How's that for a question?
No, that's a great question, man. You got me good. And the truth of the matter is, sometimes, and once one thing you thought you've dealt with something and you've unpacked it, you look at it and you've cried about it, spoken to people you trust, then something else comes up later on. You go, oh, it's because all these tiny little doors. You got the big doors, and then there's sometimes these tiny little doors, or it starts with small doors and it leads to a big door. So it's just to go, okay. Oh, what do I have to deal with this time? Yeah. And then in the beginning of my journey, I was like, oh, really? Is there still more? Oh, shit, I have to unpack? Yeah. I thought I clocked it. I thought I clocked this game. I was like, oh, no, you didn't. Oh, what?
You're still in the game.
Totally, bro, totally. And it's always scary at the beginning of the journey because, once again, you've had to unlearn what you've been taught, which is the incorrect way to look at of vulnerability and hurt. And then you have to relearn of figure out who you really are underneath all that hurt. So yeah, it's just an ongoing journey. I tell everybody.
It's an ongoing journey, all right.
Yeah, and because I'll let you know and our viewers know, because we are goddamn worth it. Yeah. We are truly goddamn worth it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking about your daughter because she was 4 years old when this happened, and that would have been so confusing. She would not have known why you were in hospital or what had happened. I'm not sure to what degree her mother would have protected her or what amount of information she would have given her about it. But at a later age, did you properly explain everything to her and how it happened? Yeah,
much later. We wanted her just to be a kid.
Right.
Be a kid. No, she was loved.
Yeah.
So when I was shot because I provoked the police having my mental breakdown, she was just told Dad's very sick and he just needs lots of love and care. So I was in the hospital with a drip, all these drips, and I was hunched over because I was sewn up so tightly I had multiple surgeries. I was trying to learn to walk together again, and having my beautiful daughter just hold my hand as if she's the parent. She's walking me around the ward so I could learn how to walk again properly. And when I think about on those deep, beautiful, profound moments that sometimes the kid has to be the adult for the adult.
Yeah.
And all kids ever think about is from the heart first. And yeah, I still remember my daughter doing that for me. And later on, much later on, when I started to tour Shopro, so it started in 2016, that's when we slowly more started to... First, Dad had depression. We started before that. Dad has depression. This is what depression is. I know what this depression is, Dad. I've read it up. I know all about it.
How old was she then?
14.
Right.
But she sort of knew Dad had been ups and downs.
Yeah.
So now we're starting to get into... She would have heard too from maybe some close family friends that we trust or family members we trust. And then I said, Dad's touring Shopro now. She goes, I know, great. As if, what do we have to go on about this for? And then I said, Dad was shot by the police as well at the same time. And it stopped her in her tracks. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, Dad's depression caused him to want to be shot by the police. And it stopped her. And I said, that's why I'm going around helping people not get hurt like Dad. And I say, crying is better than dying. And she says, why do you have to say that for, Dad? And I said, because, my darling, people think it's the other way around. And it blew her mind, like, what? Are you serious, Dad? And so our kids need to have this conversation sometimes with their parent. And to this day, my 16-year-old never ever wants to see Shopro.
Right.
And let me just tell our viewers and yourself, I had permission by her mother. So whatever I said, and I said it with the mother, this is how we'll handle the situation. And so it was a collective parenting, even though I'm not together with her mother, it was a collective parenting understanding of how to navigate this with our child when she does have questions later on. Mum, what about this? And Dad, how about that? So we're just creating a safe space. But yeah, it was big. And let me just share this extra part. So the Shopro documentary was launched in June on Maori television, and it's now also on YouTube so it's global, accessible. And I had to have another conversation with both my daughter's mums and say, hey, Shopro's coming out to the world. and I talk about being molested. I'm just letting you know, as parents, how we're going to navigate this with our kids. Just in case they ask us, or kids at school ask them, because they've got to go to school, right?
That's right.
And so it was a really beautiful conversation, a really honouring of the love and care that we need for our kids. And it's been fine. I thought the world was going to end.
Right.
But we said it in a very gentle way to my girl. She was at 8 at the time, 8 years of age, my youngest, who's nine now. And to my big girl, I just said it straight out with her mother in the room. And she looked to her mother for like confirmation, like, are you sure this is a good thing, Mum? Dad putting this out there to the world like that? And her mother just nodded in agreement. She said, it's a good thing. She said, Dad's going to help other people hurting.
100%.
And so from a 16-year-old girl talking to her mum and dad in a room like we are and looking for confirmation and just trusting, like, okay, Dad, if you think that's a good thing. And I'm like, it's a good thing.
That's amazing, Rob. I really commend you for everything that you've done, and I sincerely mean that. It takes balls to like almost feel like you're going against the grain, standing out and sharing stuff that I'm sure a lot of men have gone through or are thinking about or are holding inside, but there's only a few, I feel, that are willing to like speak out about it. And the more they speak out about it, the more they generate that energy of being open with each other.
Absolutely, brother.
Our men are worth so much.
Yes.
They don't know it.
Yeah.
They don't know it. They feel worthless sometimes. They get stuck into like relationships where they're caught up in their own mind. They can't feel like they can talk to their mates about what issues they're going through if they're misses and all this other stuff. And then they isolate themselves and it becomes like a cloud that grows bigger and bigger. But they don't know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
They don't know that every other guys go through the same thing. And this is normal to feel, to feel down sometimes. It's just like I train quite a bit. And every now and then I get injured, you know what I mean? I can't train for a while, or I've got to let that part heal. But I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like your mental health is very similar. It goes through its ups and downs, and how you maintain it and how you keep it healthy is really up to you.
Yeah.
And it's in a lot of, do you think it's in a lot of the information that you take in as well? Like if you're scrolling through a lot of shit on social media, like that can't be good for your mental health. Is that right?
No. The social media is a dark, black pit. It is the black hole of the solar system, and you've got to. What are your intentions to be on social media? It's a soapbox, right? I use social media. That's how I get around Australasia. But I look for it and I see heartache, heartbreak, world trauma, everywhere. Populations, rape, genocide, and you're like, man, these things impact us, and we want to help save the world. First person first. Save yourself.
Yeah.
Save your goddamn self.
Yeah.
And when you learn how to save yourself, then start to help others. And sometimes it's a dual thing. You can help somebody and save yourself at the same time. And in a sense, like, people go, wow, you're helping so many people around Australasia, Rob. They're helping me.
Yes.
You know what the big secret is? They're helping me. By me sharing, I'm learning from them.
Yes. Yeah. What you were just saying about social media, it's a little bit worrying, isn't it? Because you and I grew up in a time where there was no technology, where there was no, and we saw that transition happen, to now we both have cell phones and stuff. But our children, though, on the other hand, are growing up in a different world where this is normal, and this is part of day-to-day life, as having a cell phone, as being in amongst that the internet world, the social media and everything. You can touch it, bro. It's like you can move it around if you need to.
I remember the intergenerational trauma from this. Didn't want to break this one either. Gentle, don't break this. Just turned up. Sorry, brother. Yeah.
No, you're good. But I think our children are growing up in such a different world where all this social media is such a normal part of life, that it's going to be part of how they grow up. And it's also part of their future as well, and how a lot of careers are changing now as well. A lot of jobs are changing because everything's more on the internet. And with COVID-19 hitting and making sure sometimes that people are locked down at home, it becomes even more important that people are contactable via the internet and stuff like that. Do you think that going forward, right, that this is a good thing or a bad thing for our mental health in general? Well, I guess it depends on how it's used.
It's how it's used.
Yeah.
And what's your intent?
Yeah.
What is your intent to jump on social media? Mine is to find, I'm scrolling through social media all the time, I'm looking like what people are doing nationally and globally, what cool ways, not the normal dry, archaic construct of talking about mental health and suicide prevention. I'm like, what a dynamic, cool ways. So I'm scrolling through a lot. So I go past the old, America's on fire, and I know it's on fire. I can't help them at this point in time unless they
I don't think anyone can.
Unless they hire Shop Bro. Confessions of a Depressed Bullet, America. I might be able to help. But I'm just dealing with our people at the moment. But yeah, it does affect us. And once again, I'm going to go back to the word tikanga, process, in ceremony. So I was doing Shop Bro in Foxton, and this rangatira stood up, and he had his 14-year-old daughter there. And she was there, and so she watched Shop Bro, the whole community, and he said, look, I accidentally picked my 14-year-old daughter's phone up, and it was on, and it had a text saying, hey, baby, what are you up to? And he said, she's done nothing wrong. He, as a father, wanted to know who was calling his baby, baby. And then
I understand.
Then he went to his daughter, loving dad, strong man. He said, well, who's this? Oh, it's my boyfriend. How come I've never met him? And then he said to us as people in the community, so how many times has this boy been in my house? He held up the cell phone, and I've never met him. And what has he been saying to my baby? So once again, we go back to old school values. Parents meet the pending boyfriend or the pending girlfriend. Traditional. Sit down, have a kai together, have a meal. Just get to know this young man so he knows that he's not just dealing with the daughter, he's dealing with the family.
100%.
And so he was talking about there needs to be some sort of etiquette around social media in their own home. Yeah,
well, it comes down to how you parent it and how you monitor your children and their access to it.
Yes.
Because they are still children. I think a lot of people start to forget that, that they are still children, and their minds, even though they obviously develop at a faster rate these days because of technology, but they are still children. Oh. They still have needs that children need and wants that, children's wants, but they have to be parented. They have to be disciplined to some degree, but know where the boundaries are. If they don't have the boundaries, then what are you going to do?
And then you wonder why they start roaming, and then you wonder why these things start to fall apart. Absolutely, there has to be boundaries, and it has to be sat down as a family and discuss them around the table. I'll tell you a cool thing that another family and some friends of mine have got about 4 kids.
Right.
Live in Gisborne, and they came to Shop Bro and they said, you know what we do, Rob? Every 2 weeks we sit around the kitchen table, and everybody can put their grief and troubles onto the table without judgment.
Is that right?
So the father, who's a good friend of mine, and the mother, I love them dearly, they've got to sit there with their mouth shut and hear their son or daughter go, you did this to me, and I did it, and you took this off me, and blah, blah, blah. And the parents like, all I did was take it off you. But then they're listening to why they're upset or why they feel there's some grievance, and it's just listening to each other.
That's pretty awesome.
Without being authoritative, like, listen, young man, back in my day, it was a backhand, kick up the ass. Yeah. What's your problem? Now it's like, hey, and I was impressed by that. Yeah. So they just came.
I'm impressed by that.
So every 2 weeks, and then his little kids looked at me and was like, rolling her eyes, going, yeah, every 2 weeks. Like, it cracked me up. Was like, which is a great thing. And, and I suppose that's just another way to address it, instead of like, hey, you shush your mouth, get up his lap, and then just carry on. I'm the boss, which is just how we've been taught. So we can still enforce authority with more compassion and understanding.
Yeah. I just had a thought then, just going back to the violent way in which you chose to try to commit suicide. Yes. When you were in the spiral of wanting to take your life, why was it that was the one way you chose? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I address this in Shop Bro in my show. It's so I'm spiraling out of control, don't know which way is up or down, feeling like the biggest crap in the world, and I think I deserve a violent death. That's how shit I am. It has to be a violent death. And then another thought came up. I've seen police growing up as a young boy shoot Maori on the news, right or wrong. This should be easy. I'm a Maori. And that's like, it was like all your memories from childhood flicker in like 2 seconds. And you just downloaded it and you remembered it. And now you're just going, cool, you're acting on it. So that's why.
That's very disturbing.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing. What you just said there is a lot of Maori get shot history, which is a true fact. It's heartbreaking to hear that.
It is, and it's Maori and Polynesians, and there is like systemic racism, and it is it's just trying to address these old archaic policies and systems and freak out the constabulary, or not the constabulary, freak out the old school governance, and we need to put more of a holistic healing methodologies around this. Tikanga, ceremony, restorative justice. We have to face the family and stuff, so you can start to see like this person had family who cared about them, and then start to unpack that person's trauma who's gone to jail. Otherwise, that person who caused the trauma is going to cause more trauma if we don't start to look at this more in a holistic well-being methodology.
Sure. It obviously inspired like a massive passion within you to tell this to everyone. How many shows do you do like a week? Like,
it varies. Sometimes I might do 3 in a week.
Right.
Then I might have like a week off.
Yeah.
Then I might do.
Is it exhausting?
2.
Because you're going to like such a raw place, or such a place of trauma, to try and get this message across. Because each audience has potentially never seen it before or heard about it before, but you're trying to take them on that journey very quickly. And as a one-man show, like you're carrying, you know what I mean? You're carrying a lot of these ideas by yourself as well. Is it tiring?
It can become physically tiring because of the travel.
Right.
But there's 2 of us always traveling.
Yes.
And to me, to help heal, it takes a village to heal a village.
Right.
So I'm always collaborating with whoever invited me. They are my touchstone in that community. All right, cool. What's happening? Who else do you have around you? And so we're sharing it, because I'm not the magical pill. I'm not the magical cure. We are. Every single person has got the answer within inside them. It's just collaborating and sharing ideas like, how are we going to make this space safer? What other things do you think we need around us? And so my main job is just to hold the space.
Right.
So any troubles and trauma that comes out within the room that people share in a very safe space, I'm not there to hold their trouble.
Right.
I'm only there to hold the space.
Right.
And in the first year of Shopper, I didn't know that. So I face planted quite a few times trying to do the show, hold the forum, hold the problems, face plant. And I was exhausted.
Yes.
That's
exhausted.
What I meant. Yeah. And I was physically, emotionally, spiritually exhausted. So over a period of time, my cousin Clint, who's come on the road with me, helped frame like a tikanga framework, a practical process, which is physical and spiritual and mental, of getting into the spaces and getting out.
Yes.
So having a defrag, a technique to defrag. So I have the forum is one part of it, and then the food after every presentation is food to ground. Every culture has food to ground themselves before and after a ceremony, or before that. So using sort of these tikanga, these techniques from our ancestors, which is not just, these are Pākehā brothers and sisters. They've got these. Food is universal. So grounding, and once we get home, I have a hot shower. I have a food with my sound technician, or my cousin, my friend, and we do a debrief about the day. And we do 3 highlights and 1 take home. So what are the 3 highlights we got out of today? And as you give the highlights, you can also address because it triggered this, and it made me think of this, and that's why it was a highlight, because it illuminated this old hurt. And then we use 1 take home. The take home after you boil it all down is, have courage to speak from the heart when no one else does.
Yes.
And so when I'm going into prisons, maximum security prisons, for some very scary people, which I make sure that tikanga, that etiquette, is the same in prisons as well as communities. I'm going to do this forum, then we're going to eat and ground, and then we're going to talk. And I get these men to do the 3 highlights and 1 take home, and the majority of them engage with the etiquette that I've created from the moment I've stepped into their unit. So I suppose it's just being firm of how you're going to frame it.
Yeah.
Know how to do it,
implement
it, walk it, talk it, and then show people how to do it, who you're collaborating with.
Yes. You ever get any kickback at all from when you are performing in prisons?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, any people ever react negatively to because obviously what you're putting out there, not everyone's potentially at a space where they're willing to take on information or take on the process of healing. Potentially you've got people in there that are in quite strong denial. Do you get much kickback at all?
Well, those places are scary in general, but I'm going under, no matter what culture, I'm talking the Maori and Polynesians, Pākehā, but we're going into a tikanga framework.
Yes.
So I ask I'll set up with my sound technician. I always ask for an hour and a half to 2 hours to set up. Then I say, I would like a mihi whakatau. So mihi whakatau is an informal welcome from the men in the unit to us. So we can kōrero back and forth. They can suss me out. We can suss out the energy or the wairua in the room. And we're acknowledging a very tapu space, a sacred space. I'm not just coming here to open up shit. I'm coming here to do it in a ceremonial way through tikanga, and then I will open it up. And I will close it on that tikanga framework. Now, going back to hostile, let me tell you, the most hostile that ever happened with Shopro is from my own cousin in a place, rural community presentation in a small rural community called Tane Atua. So I met this cousin the first time that morning. I never knew we were related through my mother. Big burly guy, facial moko.
Where's Tane Atua?
Tane Atua is near Whakatane.
Yes.
It's near there, very small place. Yep. And anyway, we get on like a house on fire. I say this in Shopro because that's part of my healing. And so we get on like a house on fire. So everybody's drinking alcohol before I'm even doing the show. I'm just warming up at the very small art gallery. And I'm like, oh, geez, but early cuzzies. I haven't even done the show. Okay, sweet as. Anyway, I do the show. The community laugh and cry, and they speak from the heart. And that in the first, so I'll just go back a little bit. In the first 5 minutes of Shopro is very hilarious before it starts to put in the medicine. Then it gets to the heart. So in the first 5 minutes, the community are laughing, except for that big cousin of mine, who is on the piss. He's just on it. He is not laughing. He storms out. He doesn't leave the venue. He sits in the doorway and he just keeps drinking alcohol.
And you can still hear the show.
He's watching it
in
the doorway, hearing it, seeing it, and I think, oh, sweet as, because he's just a bit upset about something. Anyway, I finished the show. The community, once again, they share from the heart. Tame Iti, amazing rangatira for Tūhoe on my mother's side. He closes it with a beautiful whai kōrero and karakia, prayer, and I send my team home. I say, I'm staying with the cousins. When the last person left that night, that cousin who's still on the piss smashed the shit out of me. He beat me up so badly I had to cancel the last 2 shows. My face was a mess. And I suppose from that day on, it made me realise when I do Shopro, there's no alcohol before, during or after. Even if I'm doing a rugby club, soccer club, where sporting people like to have an ale. I was like, no more, because I didn't see that coming, because he was smiling at me the whole night. And so from that experience, from being traumatized, again, my face was a mess. I'll share this with our viewers because I share it in Shopbros. My team went, let's get the hell out of here. Let's get far away from here. And my eye is out here. My face is a mess. And I say to them, hey, we've still got the Wellington Theatre Awards in 5 days. We should turn up to that. Because we were nominated for Shopbro. And they looked at me, bro. They looked at me like, you have lost your shit. What the hell are you talking about? Look at you. Look at your ugly face. And then
sunglasses, bro.
Yeah, but the eye was out there at the time, so it's traumatic for they. I'll tell you this other thing I don't share often. Is like, I was attempting the next day. I thought maybe I can still do that show. And they said, we're trying not to cry looking at you. And we know you. People looking at you will just be traumatized. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, ah! I looked in the mirror. I didn't realize how bad I looked. I was like a mess. And so... have
you spoken to that cousin since?
Oh, yeah. We ended up meeting. We ended up meeting last year.
Right.
And
when did this happen?
So this was 2017, 2018.
Okay.
2018. I think it was about then. And so, yeah. So we go to the Wellington Theatre Awards. My eye had come down after 5 days, but it was just black and purple around my face. And I had, like you said, I just put some sunnies on. And I got dressed up. My team were all dressed up. And I said, look, if we win tonight, I'll take my sunnies off. And bro, we won. It was like, ah! So we all go up to the podium, we accept the award, and I take my sunnies off. Like I said, it's purple and black around my face. And I say to the whole audience, very well-dressed audience, I said, I point to my face, this is what happens when you don't deal with your shit. you inflict it on others. And everyone is just like, ooh, yes, ooh, it looks ugly. Anyway, as I walk off, you know James Nokise?
No.
James Nokise, Samoan comedian, very good friend of mine. He was the MC of the evening. And as I was walking off with my team, the award, feeling good, he comes up to the podium and he goes, let that be a lesson to you. If your work is not powerful like Rob's, you're not getting a punch in the face like him. Kia ora. And I was like, what? And then I just started laughing. And I started laughing and I was like, yeah. And because it was only love. He was making a joke, but there was love in that. Yeah. But I was like, yeah, and I know him. And I told him, like, when I started doing Shopper, I said, James, I'm actually quoting you in Shopper all around the country now in Australia. He goes, from when? I said, remember that time? And he's like, oh, yeah. And he's fine with it.
Oh, mate, that's one hell of a story.
I know, bro.
Shit.
So when I'm going into tough prisons, it's obviously there's no alcohol there, or tough communities. I just make sure that's number one. There's no alcohol around this, and because this, as much as you're laughing and crying, there's some unresolved stuff that might pop up, and alcohol and drugs accentuate the trauma times 100.
Wow, I've never been punched in the face like that.
It was multiple, mate. I thought I was in a cage in UFC.
Yeah. Shit.
But thanks to somebody getting Tame Iti, Tame, who's the rangatira of Tuhoi, one of our rangatira. Little 5 foot, not very tall, but his mana is 7 feet tall. And thanks to him yelling at that cousin of mine, and managed to get him outside because we're fighting in a caravan.
So, fighting in a caravan.
So you want to talk about UFC cage? It was very small, bro. I don't think they do UFC caravan fight. So, bro, I was KO'd on the ground, just getting hammered. Shit. Bro, it was just a big unit.
So what was it like when you met up with him?
I made this conscious decision to forgive him so I could start healing. Mentally, physically, spiritually. And my auntie, who's a spiritual leader who's passed away recently, she said to me, I'm not sure if she meant physical, but she says, if anybody tries to put anything on you spiritually or mentally, bad vibes, dark stuff, just go neutral. And I don't think she meant getting punched in the face over and over and over again, multiple head trauma, but I thought I'm going to try and adopt that. Because people were putting ice packs all over my face to try and get the eye down, and then I forgave him, and it took a long, so it helped with my healing. So by the time I did see him, I didn't go seeking him. I thought if we bump into each other, I only want a genuine conversation, that he's gone and got some help.
Right.
Because some of our cousins said, hey, he just wants to apologize, can you meet him? I was like, I ain't saying shit until he does some work on himself. Because no matter what comes out of his mouth, and I say to him, he's not going to fully take it on board. So we meet. We're at a cafe. Check the setting. I'm with my tough Ngāpuhi brother, real good mate of mine. It's his birthday. We're having a beer and lunch at this cafe in Ponsonby. Awesome. And opposite the table, across the way, is a Maori male with a moko, kānohi. And he's not my cousin. I just go, give him a wave. See a Maori, I give him a wave. And I get the menu and I sit back at the table. I look again. What I didn't see next to him was that cousin who's also got a moko. And I was like, how come I didn't see him? Shadows, tanuwha. Anyway, he hasn't said anything to me. I thought he would have said something. So when I spotted him, I was like, be calm. My male testosterone, my Maori testosterone started to rise up. And I said, be calm. Remember, you forgave him. That's what I'm saying in my mind. And I'll share this. This is probably going to go everywhere. For a moment, because we're having a drink, I thought if I grab this bottle, I'm going to inflict some pain on him for what he did to me. And then it was only for a moment. It was like fleeting. And I went, what are you talking about? You've done all this work on yourself, Rob, to get this far, from being shot to that to this. Why would you throw that away? And I was like, yeah, why would I? I go, just because of one person who's not healed and put their shit on me. So this was in a span of 5 to a few seconds, bro.
Thoughts go so fast.
Yep. And so I went over to him and he stood up. He was very nervous. And it looked like his own demon was eating him from the inside. So he, from the pit bull I met, looked more like a ragged, rabid dog. Yeah. I went, oh, well, it's already working against his favour. And it was very awkward. He was awkward. And I said, I was wondering when I was going to see you, cousin. And he said, oh, yeah, sorry about that. I used to drink, but now I don't drink. And now I do these things. And I was like, oh, yeah. I started walking towards him. I was only going to hug him. But he thought I was going to he thought we were going to get down and get down to physical. But he freaked out when I hugged him. He looked at me like, is this a trick? And I hugged him and I went, killed him, my cousin. Long time. And that's it. I just let go. He was real awkward. I sat down next to my mate. I didn't even tell him who that guy was. We just ate our lunch, and a few minutes later they just left without a word.
Wow.
So it was like laying to rest some old ghosts, and realised I had travelled so far from my upbringing, so far from that to go, hey man, this shit is not worth it. I'm healed. Why would I want to go back to where he's at?
Wow.
The big journey, bro.
That's a story, man.
Took a lot of willpower, and
I was with you like through every step of you walking towards him. It's a powerful story.
Yeah.
When it did happen initially, like how did this happen? Did he just not like the show, or did this bring up stuff for him, or what was he so mad about?
So he thinks he's somebody in the community. Right. So he thinks he's the man.
Sure.
And he's there to help the community. And he's going around pretending he's a healer.
But you were taking the limelight.
Yeah, a bit of that, but also, so there were little telltale signs. Me and my team, we unpacked this a lot over a period of time of how did we fall into that situation? How do we stay out of anything like that ever again? And even if your family, sometimes the worst. Yeah. And he was jealous, and also he was trying to hide his demons with more alcohol. That's why he was guzzling so much. He thought, if I just drink this, it will just stop. But it did the opposite.
Yes.
And also, he was jealous of the community. He was jealous of another cousin giving me attention. Okay. Like, well, you're awesome cousin. Look at our amazing cousin. It was like, okay, no one's the best except for me. And I didn't realize that he was so alcohol fueled by that time. I had no idea how drunk he was.
Yes.
No idea.
Sure.
And I'd only met him that morning. I just knew we were cousins through my mother. So I was like, man, he's a top fella.
This is the thing. You never know where people are in their own journeys in life, and you can never you never know like what sort of day they've had, and also like at the level that he was at, already intoxicated. All these little things would have just culminated together, built, and you would have no idea. You would have no idea. I'm sure this happens a lot.
Yeah.
But you'd have no idea. But all these things just building, and then to that point where he's just like, I'm gonna fucking kick his ass.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And that's why we made sure from then on in, no matter if you're like whoever rugby club, whoever football club, zero alcohol around this. Even though we're going to have to, I've been to international theatre festivals where I forgot to tell them no alcohol, and I've asked them to shut the bar.
Right.
You know, people go, wow, you turn up to festivals, we're going to have a drink and have some wine, and it's going to be great. And I said, can you shut that bar? And I told them why. And then another person who came up to me later went, you know, Rob, that was a great point you said in your show, because I started to think, why did I need this champagne when we're actually addressing mental health and suicide prevention?
Sure.
And I said, well, that's a question for yourself.
Yeah. Far out, man. Some pretty heavy stuff, but also some pretty real stuff as well.
Yeah.
And these stories, man, they're so strong, they're so powerful, because they're so real.
Yeah. Yeah, and within all of this, all of this learning is, I just keep going to the light, keep going to aroha, compassion. And biggest one is having that aroha and compassion for myself. I've still got to forgive myself for stuff that's happened to me. You know, you say forgive the person who did that thing to you, you've got to forgive yourself as well.
Yes.
And that's part of my healing, which is an ongoing thing.
Yeah. It must be, do you feel is it quite a satisfying feeling touring around, and once you get each show done, it must be quite a feeling of satisfaction, because it's not just a show that you're putting out there, it's a whole
it's experience, brother.
Yeah, it's so much different to just going and seeing a show and then you go home.
Yeah,
you know, you go in there and you're engaging, but you're thinking as well about everything to do with you, because you're identifying it back onto yourself and what I've been through and how does this relate to me, and how do I feel about that, all of that.
Yeah, it's incredibly satisfying, and I say this to every community, or most communities, just because I've seen a lot of shrinks, it doesn't mean I am one. Sure. But the fact is, from a lived experience, I've been gaining a lot of knowledge and tools just to share. And sometimes I have social workers and therapists alongside me, sometimes just me and my cousin, who's actually a social worker anyway. But it's satisfying to me because all I see is versions of Rob. Yes. Back in the day, versions. I've made this platform with my director Edina Daniels. We made this together, so someone who was like suicidal Rob in 2009 would know that it's okay, that you are not alone. Don't do this thing. Don't go and do it. Do not do this thing. That someone can actually see you. So when I see people speak, especially males, wahine are always brave. Our women, they are always brave. All cultures, women are the bravest. And when I see...
That's so true. That's so true.
And when I see men finally stand up and speak, I go, oh, there's a brother with so much guts and heart and courage, because I used to be that person. I would never, ever in a lifetime stand up and reveal anything, because that's how I was taught to be.
Right.
So it is extremely satisfying that we've put pockets of hope and light as a collaboration with the community.
Man, I just love everything about this talk. This is so, I find it so inspiring, and so there's so much light in you that's coming out, which is such a beautiful thing. And I really hope that like this message that you've got, which is such a positive message, you know, it's gonna heal a lot of families.
I hope so.
And that's such a strong thing as an artist, to be able to contribute, not just to your audience but to your community, which is even more important than an audience, because it filters through into like their people's lives. It's almost like a gift that has no value.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I'll pinch that. No, and brother, I'd like to acknowledge you because of that journey you've been on, and just to be here right now as men, as brothers. And I'm proud of you. I've been watching you from afar. Proud of you, bro.
Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me onto your podcast.
It's all good.
I was really grateful, and providing platforms for people like us.
Yeah. It was always so important for me to try and get someone on like you on. And also because your message as well, and your journey over the last few years, because I can only relate things as I see them myself, or for what I've gone through, you know. And having gone through some of the dark stuff, not necessarily to the degree that you've been on it, but at varying degrees of darkness. I guess it is, you know. And it always, for me, it's brought me down. I've had moments where I've been very, very down, but because I've been to such dips as well, I also know that there's light.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's how I make sense of it in my mind. If there's darkness, there's light. And as dark as you can go, there must be light that is so much brighter than you can see. But I understand, you know, when I ask you, like, is there peace looking back on it? I can understand when you say that it's an ongoing journey, because we don't know what tomorrow holds.
Yeah.
Because things could all change tomorrow. Yeah.
That's deep, bro. I'm loving that. That's very profound, and I'm relating to everything you just said. Yeah.
Obviously, because your background is as an actor, and you're a pretty good writer by now for writing Shot Bro. Is there other stuff that you want to branch out to, or are you pretty passionate about what you currently do at the moment?
I'm pretty passionate about what I currently do. I dabbled back in the TV world with our brother Tikohi, with Deadlands, which was a TV series, and I dabbled in that, and I went, this is really cool. These are my mates. What a blessing. But it doesn't hold a candle to what I'm doing, because mental health is ongoing for me, and I need to address it. And I like to have spaces where people are willing to address it. Not every space is willing to.
Yes.
And I suppose I'm choosing projects. I did a short film for somebody in Wellington. Yeah. Didn't have much money, but the main thing is the heart of it.
Yes.
And I read it, because people send me lots of scripts, bro. Yeah. Still. And I go, no. Oh, this one's got some healing properties in it.
Right.
I mean, they're dabbling in the dark, but the overall resounding theme is hope. And I went, oh yeah. So I went to Wellington, did this beautiful short film with these amazing heartfelt people. I went, oh yeah, I'll come back to the industry if it's like this. If we have a genuine setting where we're going to acknowledge what we're about to address, and make sure that everyone is treated in a compassionate, humane way, instead of treated like, you know, a lesser human being. So I've got some hang-ups about the entertainment industry. That's my hang-up.
I think we all do have some little hang-ups about the art industry.
Yes, yeah.
See, I've sort of distanced a little bit away from it, and that I have my own hang-ups about it, and I'm quite picky about what I do want to do and what I don't want to do, the sort of message that it does give out. I'm quite passionate about our Pacific Island and Maori people, and about telling their stories and giving them a platform to be heard, and also to me this is quite important as well. This setup is quite important to me, because this is unproduced, this is unfiltered, this is almost unedited as well. This whole thing is going to go. Because when else are you going to sit down with someone else that's going to ask you about all these things, Rob, and not cut it all down to 3 minutes? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Stuff that.
Yeah.
Because like everything that you've spoken about, all these stories that you've spoken about are so important and they're so relatable, but I don't want them to be cut down. And so I was like, the only way to do this is just go direct, do it myself.
Yeah, and I'm loving it.
Just shoot at my garage.
Hey, I tell you what, I thought it was a real flash setup. I was like, wow, well, look at the studio. And I love how you've just taken this initiative to create this platform. We need more like this.
Thank you. I have an amazing wife that supports this, that is the brains, probably the brains behind this, you know, but I couldn't do it without her. But just the two of us just being able to like just think, how can we simplify something so simple and just take it out to the world the way we want the world to see it, rather than it being produced, rather than it being filtered, or like or some guy saying, oh, we cut this out, nah, it's not enough time for him to say all of that stuff, cut it all out. Like, I want to be in charge of the stuff that we put out for our Maori and Pacific Island people, because the story is so important, and the feedback that we get as well is amazing. People feed back to this and they're like, never knew this about that, never knew so-and-so spoke like this, never knew about mental health, or about, I never knew that it was okay to talk about this. And sometimes when I get certain bits of feedback, it makes it worth the whole thing, you know. And I'm sure you can understand as well, like, especially like if you're exhausted from traveling to a location and set up everything, and after planning the whole show and prepping for it, and you do it, and then you might think, oh, it was okay, I could have done this a bit better, done that a bit better, but you might have that one person that's affected in the right way that you wanted to, makes the whole thing worth it.
Yeah, like we're very similar in the sense that we're coming with an intention, right?
Yes.
And the intention is strong. I felt it from watching, Beulah and you interview Kevin Mialamu. And I was like, yeah, the intention's strong, because I can feel it. Yeah. The Maori, the life force, and you, bro, you're living and walking and talking and breathing it too. So if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't be like this podcast.
Yeah, I felt very strongly about this. This was like probably in Auckland's second lockdown last year, that we were missing something like a podcast that was driven from a place of like sharing positive stories to try and uplift people that might be going through something. I just felt that there was a gap missing, and that if I had people on that had a message, and people come from different walks of life. I had a school teacher on last week. She was amazing from Opanoni. She was awesome. But I've had such different people on. I had a detective on the week before that. If we can get their message or like their story or their journey out, that somehow there's people out there that it touches, that it inspires, that it makes them think, hang on, that's a career I could do. Or hang on, I can change the way I think about this, you know? So I'm going to ask you now, like for all the people listening in, for our brothers and sisters that might be in like a dark place at the moment, might be in like a rough patch, going through a rough patch, and they can't see the light. What do you say to people like that are stuck in something that's quite hard, that feels like it's never ending?
I'm just going to talk how I needed to be spoken to. Breathe. You are loved. You are worth it. I don't care what that voice is saying inside your head. You are goddamn worth it, and you are loved. And just keep breathing and reach out for help. And if that person can't help you, find another one. If that person, find another one. Because those who can't help or don't want to are also scared, so don't worry. Just keep breathing. You're goddamn worth it. And you don't know me, I don't know you, but I love you, man, because someone may not have told you that before. As a male, I can't remember my dad telling me he loved me, except maybe when I was in hospital. I'm going to that now, and I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. So to our strong women, our strong men, and all backgrounds, you are loved. I don't care what that voice tells you. Just remember that. And it's hard to.
Rob Mokaraka, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, brother. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, brother. Much love to you and your family, and thank you for creating this platform.
Thank you, bro. I'm going to get you back on at some point. I am.
Oh, grateful.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.
It's in that mic on Mike. It's in that mic on Mike.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Garage Drinks with Mike. Woo!